I never thought I'd hear my own mother tear me apart in front of strangers. Yet there I was, sitting in a cold courtroom, as my mom, Claudine Maddox, pointed her finger at me and shouted, "She can't even work. She's a failure who can barely hold a job." Her words weren't just accusations. They were daggers. Each sentence felt like she was peeling away what little dignity I had left. I kept my eyes on the polished wood of the table, trying not to let the tears spill. The cameras clicked. People whispered. And I sat there, wondering how a mother could love her reputation more than her own daughter. Across the room, my younger brother, Dorian, avoided my gaze. I could see the guilt flicker in his eyes, but he stayed silent, just the way Mom had taught him. To her, silence was loyalty. The judge, Sterling Vance, leaned back in his chair, his sharp eyes narrowing at my mother's words. He wasn't just listening. He was studying her. For a second, I thought I saw his jaw tighten, like he already knew something the rest of us didn't. I gripped the edge of the table so tightly my fingers turned white. My chest burned with shame, but underneath that shame was something else, something I hadn't felt in years. A quiet fire. And then, just as Mom's voice echoed through the room, Judge Vance slowly rose to his feet. His deep voice cut through the silence, "She's been." My heart stopped. The entire courtroom leaned forward. What would you do if your own mother stood in court and tried to destroy your life? People see courtrooms as places where justice lives. For me, it felt like the stage where my life was being shredded apart. But what they didn't know, what most people still don't know, is that this trial wasn't about jobs, or money, or anything written in those thick case files. It was about years of control, humiliation, and betrayal that started long before I ever stepped into that room. I grew up in a house where appearances were everything. My mother, Claudine, was the queen of our small town. She dressed like she owned every room she walked into, and she demanded we look perfect too. My younger brother, Dorian, was her golden child. She praised him for everything, his grades, his smile, even the way he stood. Me? I was the reminder that perfection was fragile. To her, I was too quiet, too emotional, too wrong. I can still remember being 12 years old, standing in the kitchen with a report card in my hand. I had 3 A's and 2 B's. I thought she'd be proud. Instead, she looked at me with disgust and said, "You'll never get anywhere being average." Then she called Dorian in, bragging about how he had gotten straight A's. That was the moment I realized love in our house wasn't unconditional, it was performance-based. When I turned 18, I tried to break away. I got my first job at a diner. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. For the first time, I felt like I had something she couldn't control. But she showed up one evening, right in front of my manager, and hissed, "She's unreliable. Don't count on her lasting." I was fired 2 weeks later. That became the pattern. Every time I tried to stand, she kicked my legs out from under me. College? She forgot to submit the financial forms. Jobs? She spread rumors about my attitude. Relationships? She whispered just enough poison to make people doubt me. I thought it was bad luck for years, until I realized the common thread was always her. Dorian never questioned it. Why would he? To him, Mom was a hero. She paid his bills, cheered at his games, and introduced him as her pride and joy. He didn't see the way she chipped away at me behind closed doors. Or maybe he did, but he pretended not to. Silence, after all, kept him safe. By the time I hit 25, I was exhausted. I had bounced between so many jobs I lost count. I started believing her words, that I was weak, useless, and unfit for anything meaningful. Depression wrapped around me like chains. I remember lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, asking myself, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just be enough? That's when Elias Ward came back into my life. Elias was my childhood friend, the only person who ever noticed the bruises on my spirit before they became scars. He had left for college, built a career, and now he was back in town. We met by accident at a grocery store. I tried to hide, embarrassed by the mess my life had become, but he looked at me like I was still that girl with big dreams. For the first time in years, I felt seen. But just as hope flickered back, Mom dragged me into this lawsuit. She claimed I was unfit to manage the small inheritance Dad left behind. She wanted full control. To her, I wasn't capable of handling money, decisions, or even my own future. And so here I was, in a courtroom, fighting for the right to simply be treated like an adult human being. Every time she spoke on the witness stand, she twisted the knife deeper. She can't hold a job. She's unstable. She wastes every opportunity she's ever been given. The crowd murmured. My brother nodded, feeding her lies with his silence. But Judge Sterling Vance was watching closely. He asked questions she dodged. He leaned forward whenever I spoke, as if he sensed the truth hiding beneath my cracked voice. I sat there torn between two battles, one against my mother in front of the court, and one inside myself, against the years of doubt she planted in me. Could I really win? Could I finally prove that I wasn't the failure she painted me to be? And deep inside, a question kept echoing: if the truth finally came out, would it set me free, or destroy what little family I had left? Courtrooms are supposed to be quiet places, but when my mother spoke, it felt like the walls shook. Her voice carried pride, venom, and confidence. She wasn't just testifying against me, she was performing, making sure every person in that room believed her story. She's unreliable. She can't even pay her own bills. If she's given control of anything important, she'll ruin it. Every word pressed down on my chest like a weight I couldn't escape. I wanted to shout back, to defend myself, but the rules of the court demanded silence. My attorney whispered for me to stay calm, but calm was the last thing I felt. Then came Dorian's turn. My little brother, who once shared secrets with me under blanket forts, now sat across from me, his shoulders tense. He wouldn't look me in the eye. Dorian, the attorney asked, do you believe your sister is responsible enough to manage her inheritance? There was a pause, long enough for hope to bloom in my chest. But then he cleared his throat and muttered, no. I don't. It was like the air had been punched out of me. Mom gave him a proud smile, the same smile she used to give him when he won trophies as a kid. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about money. It was about control. She had trained him, too, trained him to see me the way she did. The crowd seemed convinced. I caught whispers from the benches, poor woman, imagine having a daughter like that. My stomach twisted. I wanted to disappear. But then I felt it, a hand brushing mine under the table. Elias. He had shown up quietly that morning, sitting in the back row, but now he had moved closer. His presence was steady, like an anchor keeping me from sinking. When I glanced at him, his expression told me what words couldn't: you're stronger than this. Don't give in. The hearing dragged on for days. Each time I stepped into that courtroom, I braced myself for another wound. Mom grew crueler with every session, her stories painted me as lazy, unstable, and untrustworthy. She spoke about jobs I had lost, without ever admitting she was the reason I lost them. She brought up old relationships, twisting them into tales of my recklessness. And the worst part? The jury leaned forward, eating up every word. One afternoon, my attorney tried to counter her testimony. He asked, Mrs. Maddox, are you aware that Rowena once worked 3 jobs at the same time to cover expenses after her father passed? For a moment, her mask slipped. But then she laughed. 3 jobs? If that were true, she wouldn't have failed at all of them. The courtroom chuckled. My cheeks burned. I wanted to disappear into the wooden bench beneath me. That night, I sat in my car outside the courthouse long after everyone left. My hands gripped the steering wheel, but I didn't start the engine. Tears ran down my face faster than I could wipe them. Elias appeared at my window, tapping gently. You don't have to sit here alone, he said. I let him in, and for the first time, I let my anger spill. She's winning, Elias. She's turning everyone against me. Maybe she's right, maybe I really am nothing. He turned to me, his jaw tight. Don't you dare believe that. I've known you since we were kids, Rowena. You're not weak. You've been surviving a war inside your own home. That doesn't make you useless, it makes you stronger than most people in that courtroom. I wanted to believe him. His words were like sunlight in the middle of a storm. But the storm was still raging, and I wasn't sure if I could make it to the other side. The next day in court, Mom strutted in wearing pearls and a navy dress, smiling as if she had already won. Her confidence filled the room. She didn't just think she had the upper hand, she knew it. But there was one person who hadn't spoken much yet, Chief Justice Sterling Vance. He had been quiet, observing. Sometimes I caught him staring at Mom with a look that was hard to read. He wasn't laughing at her jokes. He wasn't nodding at her stories. He was watching. Calculating. That gave me the tiniest flicker of hope. Because if he saw through her lies, even just a little, then maybe, just maybe, the truth still had a chance to break free. By the third week of the hearing, the courtroom had turned into a theater. My mother was the star, and I was the villain in her story. She strutted to the witness stand with a smile that could cut glass, holding her head high as if she had already claimed her victory. She didn't even glance at me as she raised her right hand and swore to tell the truth. She never needed to look at me, because in her eyes, I had already been erased. Her voice was steady as she spoke. My daughter has never been able to hold her life together. She jumps from job to job, relationship to relationship. She's irresponsible. She wastes money. And if you hand her control of this inheritance, she'll lose it all within months. She's never been good for anything. That last line was a dagger. I felt it pierce straight through me. My breath hitched. My heart pounded in my ears. For a moment, I couldn't even see the courtroom, I just saw every moment she had torn me down. The kitchen table when she mocked my grades. The diner when she cost me my first job. The nights I lay awake, wondering if I was truly worthless. I clenched my fists under the table, but my body betrayed me. Tears slipped down my cheeks, no matter how hard I tried to stop them. My mother's smirk widened when she saw it. To her, my tears were proof that she was right. The silence after her words was suffocating. The jury stared at me like I was some fragile, broken thing. My attorney shuffled papers but didn't say much. For the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe this was it, that she had finally destroyed me completely. And then, a deep voice cut through the silence. Enough. Chief Justice Sterling Vance's voice echoed like thunder. He rose slowly from his chair, his robe swaying as he stood tall. Every eye in the courtroom snapped to him. My mother froze, her smug expression faltering. He looked directly at her. Mrs. Maddox, you've spoken at length about your daughter's supposed failures. But this court has records. And I've reviewed them carefully. My stomach flipped. Records? He pulled a file from his bench, flipping it open with deliberate calm. Rowena Maddox has held no fewer than 6 jobs over the past decade. Do you know what I see in those records? Not irresponsibility. Resilience. I see a young woman who worked double shifts at a diner, then moved on to an office job, then worked as a caregiver for the elderly. Do you know what that says to me? He paused, his eyes sharp. That she refuses to quit, no matter how many times life knocks her down. The room erupted in whispers. My tears kept falling, but now, they were different. For the first time, someone saw me. Really saw me. My mother's face turned pale, but Judge Vance wasn't finished. And these terminations you mentioned, Mrs. Maddox, he pulled another paper from the file. Funny how 2 of these employers reported unusual interference from family members. Phone calls. Unannounced visits. Someone spreading damaging rumors. Would you like to explain that? The color drained from her face completely. For the first time, she had no words. He turned to me then. His voice softened. Rowena, you have stood quietly while your own mother tried to bury you with lies. This court will not allow slander to replace truth. You are not a failure. You are not incapable. You are a woman who has endured more than most and still found the strength to stand here today. I covered my mouth with my hand, choking back sobs. The weight I had carried for years seemed to lift, if only a little. And then, something I never expected, Elias rose from the back row. Your Honor, if I may, he said, his voice steady. Judge Vance nodded. Elias stepped forward, holding a small folder. I worked with Rowena years ago at a community shelter. She volunteered every weekend, even when she was working full-time. She never missed a shift. She helped families who had less than nothing. I thought this might matter. He placed the folder on the bench. The judge opened it, scanning the contents. He nodded slowly, then looked back at the courtroom. So while her mother paints her as useless, the truth is she has been serving others selflessly, without recognition. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's facade shattered in front of everyone. Dorian shifted uncomfortably in his seat, guilt written across his face. For the first time in my life, the power was no longer hers. The truth was no longer buried. Judge Vance's final words rang like a bell: this court will not stand for false testimony. And it will not strip a woman of her dignity just to satisfy a controlling parent. Rowena Maddox has proven her strength in ways that matter far more than money. I couldn't breathe. Relief, shock, and raw emotion flooded through me all at once. My mother sat frozen, her carefully built empire of lies collapsing around her. And in that moment, I realized something: I had been fighting for more than just my inheritance. I had been fighting for myself. For the truth of who I really was. The gavel struck once, the sound sharp and final. The courtroom was silent except for the scratching of pens and the shuffling of papers. My mother, Claudine, sat frozen in her chair, her jaw tight, her hands gripping the edge of the table like she could hold on to her crumbling reputation by sheer force. For the first time, she wasn't the one in control. Judge Sterling Vance's eyes remained on her, cold and unflinching. Mrs. Maddox, this court takes false testimony very seriously. You've built your case on exaggerations, half-truths, and outright lies. That ends today. His words carried the weight of finality. My chest rose and fell in sharp breaths. I should have felt triumph, but instead, there was a strange heaviness. This was my mother, the woman who raised me. The woman whose approval I had begged for since childhood. Watching her unravel in front of everyone felt both liberating and heartbreaking. The judge turned to me, his tone softening. Miss Maddox, you've shown remarkable resilience in the face of cruelty. You deserve to live your life without this burden hanging over you. The inheritance is yours to manage. Case closed. The gavel struck again. Just like that, it was over. I sank back into my chair, my body trembling. Elias reached for my hand, his grip firm, grounding me in the moment. You did it, he whispered. You finally did it. But across the room, Dorian shifted uneasily. His face was pale, his eyes darting between me and our mother. When the court adjourned and people began filing out, he stayed behind. I could see the storm in his expression: anger, confusion, guilt. Finally, he approached me. His voice was low, uncertain. Rowena. I didn't know it would go this far. I thought she just wanted, I don't know, control. I didn't think she'd drag you through this. I looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in years. He still had the same nervous twitch in his jaw from when we were kids. But now, it wasn't nerves, it was shame. You knew, I said quietly. Maybe not all of it. But you knew what she was doing to me. And you stayed silent. His shoulders sagged. He didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. I was afraid, he admitted. Afraid of losing her approval. Afraid of being on the outside like you. The honesty stung. But at least it was honesty. I can't change the past, he whispered. But I'm sorry. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a start. Meanwhile, Claudine stormed out of the courtroom, her heels striking the floor like gunshots. The pearls around her neck glistened under the light, but for the first time, they didn't look like symbols of power. They looked like armor on someone who had just lost the war. She didn't look back at me. Not once. In the days that followed, whispers spread quickly through town. The woman who once ruled every social circle was now the subject of hushed gossip. People began questioning her stories, her reputation, her so-called perfection. For someone like Claudine, that was the worst punishment of all. As for me, I felt lighter with every passing day. The inheritance papers were signed in my name, but that wasn't what mattered. What mattered was that I had finally been seen for who I was, not who she said I was. One evening, Elias and I walked through the park where we used to play as kids. The trees were taller now, the swings rusted, but the air smelled the same, fresh, alive, free. "Do you feel different?" he asked, glancing at me. I thought about it. "I feel like I finally stepped out of her shadow," I said. "For years, I thought I was weak. But maybe surviving her was proof that I wasn't." He smiled. "You were never weak, Rowena. You just needed someone to remind you." I didn't say anything, but deep inside, I knew he was right. The scars my mother left would take time to heal, but for the first time, I believed they could. And as we left the park, the sunset painted the sky in streaks of gold and crimson. For the first time in a long while, the horizon didn't look distant or unreachable. It looked like a promise. I used to think justice was something that happened only in fairy tales or movies, where the villain always got exposed, and the hero always walked away whole. But life isn't that simple. Justice doesn't erase the years I lost under my mother's control. It doesn't rewrite the birthdays she ruined, the dreams she dismissed, or the countless times she told me I wasn't enough. But what it does give me is a new beginning. When Judge Vance struck that gavel, it wasn't just about money or inheritance. It was about breaking free from the story Claudine had written for me. For years, I lived in the role she forced upon me, the quiet daughter, the unworthy one, the forgotten shadow of her golden sun. But now, I get to write my own story. In the weeks after the trial, I started doing something simple, something I hadn't allowed myself in years. I woke up early, brewed my own coffee, and sat by the window with a journal. At first, I didn't know what to write. The pages stayed blank, my pen heavy in my hand. Then one morning, the words came. I am more than what she said I was. It felt strange at first, almost childish. But the more I wrote, the lighter I felt. Each line was a step away from her and a step closer to myself. Dorian visits sometimes. Our conversations are still awkward, filled with pauses and unspoken history. But he tries. And maybe that's enough for now. I don't hate him, I just don't trust him fully yet. Healing isn't a straight line. As for Claudine, she avoids me. I hear her name whispered in hushed tones when I walk through town, but she never looks me in the eye. Maybe she never will. And strangely, that no longer matters to me. Because for the first time in my life, I'm not chasing her love. I'm not trying to prove myself worthy of her attention. I finally understand that the emptiness she left in me wasn't mine to carry, it was hers all along. Standing in front of the mirror one evening, I caught myself smiling. A real smile, not the polite one I used to wear to survive her scrutiny. I realized something then: freedom doesn't always come with fireworks or grand gestures. Sometimes, it comes quietly, like the moment you breathe without fear. This isn't the end of my story. It's just the beginning of one I finally get to write myself. And if you're listening to me right now, if you've ever felt invisible, silenced, or crushed under the weight of someone else's control, I want you to know this: you are stronger than you think. You are not what they say you are. You are more.